when I thought the series was over, yet again, the left comes up with more stupid gun control arguments. So here it is, stupid gun control arguments number 11. Okay, so for those of you who are maybe new to the channel or haven't seen these videos before, because it's been a while since I've made one of these stupid gun control argument videos, these videos are based around the stupid gun control arguments that you hear after shootings and stuff like that. The ones that they don't make sense, they're either outright lies, the arguments are outright lies, or they got so many holes in their arguments that they're just easily debated. And the stupids come up with these arguments, and I make these videos. So for stupid gun control arguments number 11, it actually embodies two stupid gun control arguments. One is something that they say all the time, and the other one is relatively new, and that's the mental illness argument. Now, I was recently debating this guy, and he says that he supports reasonable gun ownership. So he starts out the conversation with, I support reasonable gun ownership, as if he doesn't have a problem with reasonable gun ownership. And that's what they do. They'll start it out with, see, I'm with you. See, I support what you want to do, but then continues on, as long as it's on my terms. And that's what I call responsible gun ownership. So that if you disagree with anything he says after I support reasonable gun ownership, if you disagree with any of those things, you now, all of a sudden, do not, you do not support reasonable gun ownership. This is a tactic that they use, and it's used all the time, very common for them, because they can't think beyond that. So you might ask, what was his version of responsible gun ownership? Well, the biggest part of it was for people to get mental evaluations and mental checks before owning a firearm, before being able to purchase a firearm. And this is absolutely insane. The mental illness comes from people that say these things, because in no other aspect of the 10 Amendments of the Bill of Rights does anybody apply this term, does anybody apply this reasoning, that you should have a mental illness check before being able to write for a newspaper, that you should have a mental illness check before having the right to privacy. You don't turn your computer on and it says, by the way, you're completely open to the world, completely open to the government, completely open to spying, and none of your information is going to be private until you show up to a psychiatrist, you pay for the appointment, and you have a mental check before you have a right to privacy. Nobody says that. Nobody applies these mental checks before any other of the 10 Amendments of the Bill of Rights. But it's okay to have this conversation about guns. Now, of course, I support responsible gun ownership, but I also support rights. These things that you have, these things that you naturally are born with, that you shouldn't have to have a mental evaluation before you're allowed to practice this right. What if a cop came into your house right now, a cop broke into your house, busted down the front door, and you start talking about the Fourth Amendment, and he's like, do you have your mental evaluation check card yet? No? Well, we're going to go through your shit. People would freak. People would absolutely lose their minds if somebody came up with, before you're allowed to practice any of your rights, before you're allowed to have freedom of speech, before you're allowed to have right to privacy, before you're allowed to have a speedy and fair trial, you have to have a brain check first. Now, of course, I brought up the speedy and fair trial part in the conversation with that guy, and he says, well, all the time people are checked for their mental stability before a trial. Yeah, but they're not getting denied a trial. They're not getting denied. The first step wasn't, we're going to deny you a trial until you get your mental evaluation done. It was, in order for it to be a fair trial, which is part of the rights, a speedy and fair trial. In order for you to get a fair trial, then we're going to make sure that you're not freaking nuts, that you understand the consequences of your actions, that you understand, what happens in a trial, you understand what's going on, you understand all these things. It's part of having a fair trial. It's not a denial of a trial, as this guy tried to say. Now, to go along with the mental evaluation checks, they don't go any farther than that. They don't say, not only do they not apply that to the other 10 amendments of the Bill of Rights, they never would apply that to that. Not only do they don't go any farther, they don't say who's going to pay for it. Well, who's going to pay for it? You? Me? Is the taxpayers going to pay for it? Am I going to be forced to pay for a $100 an hour psychiatrist before I'm allowed to purchase a firearm? You're going to make it so expensive for me and such a pain in the ass to be able to buy a firearm? Or is it that you believe that in the 1 hour or 2 hour session of a psychiatrist, that psychiatrist is going to say, yes, he'll never ever go nuts. Ever, never go nuts. Nothing will ever happen in his life to where he might snap. Of course that's not the case. Of course a psychiatrist can't say that. Of course a doctor can't say that. So what you're really doing is you don't want people to get mental evaluations in order for them to have responsible gun ownership, because it's only responsible gun ownership if you follow our rules. You want people to just not have them. You want people to not have guns. And that's the whole point in putting all these different roadblocks in front of a person. It has nothing to do with mental evaluations. It has nothing to do whether or not you're concerned if somebody's sane or not. It has everything to do with putting as many roadblocks in front of a person as you can in order for less people to own firearms. But no matter how often they say it, and I realize that this stupid gun control arguments video is a lot longer than the past ones, and I apologize for that. But like I said, this is 2 of them. No matter how much you try to debate them, no matter how much you bring up these things, they don't want to have the conversation. And that's the other way they start out all of their debates. We want to have a conversation about gun control. No, you don't. You don't want to have a conversation about gun control. You want people to agree with you. You have no interest in a conversation, because as soon as you don't agree with them, not only do you not want responsible gun ownership apparently, but you also apparently want kids to die, because that's the automatic thing they go to. Is if you debate any of their points, it's not about a conversation, it's not about a debate at that point. You say, no, you're wrong, or I disagree, then they say, what, you want people to die? Well, of course that's not the case. Well, I can't say nobody wants somebody to die, because that's why we're having this conversation. It's because the left want people to die. I know, it sounds completely backwards, but that's exactly what's happening. Is they have no interest in saving one life, because if they did have any interest in saving one life, they would let people have firearms, because they are used so often to save somebody's life in self-defense. So they have no interest in saving your life. They have no interest in saving anyone's life. They only have interest in blocking you from having firearms. That is their only interest. They don't want to have a conversation about it, because, like I said, when you disagree with them, it's all of a sudden you want people to die. Or you don't want responsible gun ownership, because their definition of responsible gun ownership is their ideas and their ideas only. So they're going to play these tricks on you. They're going to start conversations like, I support responsible gun ownership, as if to say they're on your side, but it's only as long as you follow the list of roadblocks that they want you to go through. That's what they consider responsible gun ownership. And when the stupid say that, when these gun grabbers say that, remember, they're trying to trick you into something that's just stupid. It's something that doesn't exist on this planet, and that is being able to predict the future. That's what they think, that's what they want you to think they can do, by having these mental checks, by having these roadblocks, by having all these things. It's not preventative measures. They want you to believe that they can predict the future, that as long as we do these things, everything will be just fine. And that's not the case, and when you say those things, you just sound stupid. So that's number 11 and number 12. Hopefully I don't run into a 13 or 12 and a half, however you want to say it. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you later.